Hey, Alabama basketball fans, welcome back. This is Michael Southern from Tide Hoops History, and we are here for episode 6. Hard to believe that, of the Blue Collar Podcast. And as always, we are joined by Emilee Smarr of the Tuscaloosa News. Emilee, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great after those late tip-offs last week.
I was right there with you, being a little punchy, trying to keep up with what was going on with those
Yeah.
late tips last week in Vegas. We have a lot to unpack, but first, really appreciate the people who have been viewing these podcasts. We've seen the viewership really go up. Seems to be a lot of interest. If you like what you're seeing, please encourage you to subscribe to the Crimson Crossover channel. There are three basketball podcasts going on basically every week, and I promise you, we're not stepping on each other's toes. They are all unique. They all come from a different angle for Alabama men's basketball. So if you like Alabama basketball content this winter, Crimson Crossover is the channel you need to be on, because you're going to get 3 a week, and it's been a blast. You'll have a lot of fun, and please like, subscribe, and keep coming back. All right, Emilee, let's do this real quick. Let's go ahead and do a quick recap. We all know about the late night games last week. Alabama goes out to Vegas. They go 2-1. I was the optimist, saying they'd go 3-0. You were right. You said 2-1. You just had the order backwards, so we were both off a little bit. Now that we have had time to think about the loss to Gonzaga and then 2 big wins against maybe not the best teams in UNLV and Maryland, what did you see from Alabama that you liked from how they participated in the event?
I love the bounce back. I think that not letting a Gonzaga team that, in my opinion, was a lot better than, I mean, I know that they were hyped coming into it, but, to deliver on those expectations, but also exceed them. I think that the the comeback, that the way that they came back with 2 different, performances against UNLV, Maryland, having one of the highest scoring performances against UNLV, but having what was it, the most assists during the Nate Oats era, or tying for the most assists during the Nate Oats era
That's right.
against Maryland. I think that it shows what this team can continue to do offensively, but still the rebounding is just a huge concern. They rebounded better against UNLV and Maryland, but they should rebound better against those teams. They're not quad one opponents. So obviously, I still want to see more from the front court. I think, that being said, though, what I saw from Aiden Sherrill last week, Nate Oates touched on it today during his press conference, but it was the best stretch by far that we've seen from Aiden Sherrill. And I think that, what he had to offer, just, from dunks, blocks, rebounding, I think that we saw him really take a lot of initiative last week. So there's a lot to be excited about for him moving forward. He was projected to be one of the breakout players for Alabama basketball coming into the season, and I think that last week is really where we saw that click. So I'm excited to see what he does moving forward, and also, the bounce back. I know I keep saying bounce back, but the bounce back that Aiden Holloway had after a really, honestly, one of the poorest shooting performances of his career against Gonzaga. What he was able to do, not just one night against UNLV, but come back and do it again to score his first career double-double with points and assists against Maryland. I think that that's really another optimistic aspect of Alabama's backcourt, which has already been the most highly touted thing about this team throughout this season.
I think, and we've talked about this before, the most amazing thing about the team. Look, right now, we know what the team is. They're 5-2. They're actually, I think they're moved up in the net to 12. They're ranked number 12. This team is nowhere near the ceiling yet, and this team is nowhere near close to being healthy yet. So
Mm-hmm.
the future, and I don't know, the upside is still there for a team, and they're already competing against some of the best teams out there with limited resources, limited players. The young guys are going to get more experience. Let me ask you this real quickly about the young guys. One of the ones that I really was impressed with was London Jemison. So I thought he really stepped up in some of those later games, because, in my opinion, with London Jemison's size and his athleticism, I think he could become extremely important as the stretch wears on in the SEC schedule.
I completely agree. If he keeps shooting the way that he shot the ball last week, I think that we're going to see a lot of really good growth from him moving forward. It was a little bit of a quiet start for him to start the season, which obviously we're still at the start of the season, but very early on, it was a little bit quiet for him. Maybe not exactly what we had expected based on what we'd heard over the summer, but I think that, now he's settling into the system, settling into competition, and I think that we're really starting to see him start to click on all cylinders. So I'm excited to see what he can bring to this team moving forward. These freshmen are honestly probably one of the best parts about this team. Just seeing how they've immediately just kind of fit in and they're in the flow, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of freshman jitters with them. I'm really excited to see how they continue to progress, and obviously, just to continue chiming on these first year guys. Amari Allen, what more can you say about the kid? Another SEC Freshman of the Week honor. He's been really exciting to watch. So just continuing to see how they mesh together, especially as the injury bug kind of continues to have its way with Alabama. I think it's going to be major to seeing them, continue to finish the non-conference slate strong and start strong for conference play.
Well, Coach Oats was very high on Amari Allen as we got closer to the first game of the season. Heard a couple of comments from him, and he was really, really high on Amari. He praised the defense for Davion, and now you see London Jemison coming in there. I think maybe one of the added benefits is with these three freshmen, like we've talked about, they're fearless, they compete, and they hustle, and I think that just spurs the returning players or upperclassmen even more, because guess what? They've got three freshmen wanting playing time, and I think they're pushing the upperclassmen, so it makes everybody better.
Absolutely.
This is a little unusual timing or better timing. So you actually had the opportunity to go to Coach Oates' press conference today. I know there was a lot of topics to discuss. Give me your high points of the Nate Oates press conference today. What were the biggest things or takeaways that you had from what he talked about before the game with Clemson?
Biggest takeaways, availability report, if you will. Jalil Bethea, day-to-day, very positive update compared to just a few weeks ago, not even having a timetable for when he would return from that foot injury that's kept him out so far this season. Potentially could get a debut this week, is what I gathered from that. Latrell Wrightsell and Keaton Bristow, day-to-day with leg injuries. Oates said this. I'm not saying this. You can go ahead and give me flack and out me for my alma mater after this, but Oates said that this Clemson team is very underrated. So I think that, not having Keaton Bristow and Latrell Wrightsell is going to be it's definitely not going to be a positive. It's going to require these freshmen to step up once again and everybody to really do their job and that much more. I'm hopeful that these injuries don't keep them out for too terribly long, and I hope that it's more of a precaution, especially considering that, this is the first week I think that Alabama's played no ranked opponents. Clemson's not ranked. UTSA isn't ranked. So I think that if anything, that it might just be a effort to keep these guys rested before going into a big week next week with Arizona. But yeah, those were the really big points for me today were the injury updates. And of course, Collins Onyejiaka is still going to be out with that medical condition, which Tuscaloosa News revealed today, based from information from sources, was a heart condition the team knew about prior to him enrolling this season. There was even a procedure that he had, and in follow-ups, things didn't check off for doctors to clear him to play. That's not great to hear, just for the sake of, Collins' health. Everybody wants the best for him, especially considering he's a freshman. He's got a long, bright future ahead of him, which I guess is a positive in this sense. But of course, you want the kid to be healthy, and especially with how big he was projected to be, literally and metaphorically, for this Alabama front court. That being said, though, we only got to see him in the front court for 2 games. So I think that, is it as big of a loss as it could be because we haven't gotten to see the impact? Not necessarily, but of course it doesn't make anybody feel good to hear that kind of information, no doubt.
No, absolutely. It's concerning. Anytime there's a discussion about a heart condition, that's something extremely concerning for anybody. Obviously, we want the best for Collins. Hopefully, he has a full recovery. I draw somewhat similar comparisons to a few years ago when Avery Johnson had signed Jared Butler out of Louisiana. Jared was a 4-star guard. I believe he had already enrolled and was in Tuscaloosa, and during a physical, he failed a physical. I don't know if it was specifically something with a regular heartbeat or something, but it was a heart condition. It was deemed a heart condition, and the medical staff, in good conscience from their standpoint, could not pass him physically. So it ended up that Jared withdrew from school. Alabama released him from his letter of intent, and he went to Baylor. apparently passed whatever medical criteria they had and had a great career. Actually won a national championship in 2021 as the point guard for Baylor. So it worked out for Jared. First, we want a full recovery, and then after that, we want to see him play at Alabama. So we want those two things. Recovery first, and let's see you play at Alabama, because we already know the Achilles heel for this team right now is the front court, and losing a front court player, regardless of who it is on this team, is not what you want. That's a very difficult thing. All right, I want to not that I'm going to out you, but I want to joke with you a little bit. For those that don't know, Clemson is Emilee's alma mater. You have a unique story when it comes to basketball. You really didn't follow basketball that much when you were in school.
I didn't. Yeah, basketball was kind of thrust upon me when I got to Alabama. And I mean, if you have an opportunity to cover any sport at Alabama, who are you to say no, especially when you're 26? So I'm of course not going to deny the opportunity. I will learn ball. That being said, I mean, and I'm not trying to say this to make it sound like I had no prior knowledge of basketball. I covered basketball thoroughly when I was in South Florida, not at South Florida, but in the proximity when I was working at the Palm Beach Post. I did cover basketball. But yeah, when I was at Clemson, even as a student, I only attended one basketball game. One. Like
wow.
that was it. I was a football and baseball girly.
Okay.
And it was actually the one sport that I did not cover the entire time that I was at Clemson. I even covered soccer.
Well, guess what? Tomorrow night or Wednesday night, depending on when people are listening or watching this, you get to make up for that. So you will get to see that.
Yeah.
So now let's turn our attention to the games this week. Obviously, first one up is Clemson. So you will get to become more familiar with your former school. I agree with Coach Oats. If you currently look at the resume for Clemson, they are vastly underrated, and this could be a very dangerous team if Alabama does not take them seriously. I mean, they're 7-1. I don't know if people realize this. We tweeted this out or posted this morning, but as of right now, if the net rankings hold, this is a quad one game for Alabama. Mm-hmm. Who would have thought Clemson in Coleman was going to be a quad one? But that's what it's stacking up to be right now. And their only loss, their only loss is to Georgetown in a close game there. I know they took overtime to beat Georgia, but they're coming in here 7-1. And as you look at their roster, they've got the one thing that gives Alabama fits. They are still big. I looked at their roster. They've got Carter Welling, 6'11", Nick Davidson, 6'10", and Jake Wallen, 6'10". So they are not little by any means. Now, I don't know how athletic they are. I just know they got big bodies coming. So what does your research tell you about Clemson as far as how this is a matchup concern? Yes, no with Alabama?
They are, and I will clarify, I've watched Clemson on TV, so I did watch Clemson versus Alabama in the Elite Eight. I'm aware. But I think that the big thing that, even though they do continue to return size in the front court with Davidson and Welling, a big piece that they're missing from the last time that Alabama faced them in 2024 is Ian Shefflin. Shefflin could have come back this year. He's 6'7", 260 pounds. And he had a double-double in that Elite Eight matchup. He's not a headache that Alabama has to deal with this year because he switched over to play tight end for Dabo Swinney in Clemson football. So that's definitely something that is a positive whenever you're looking at facing this front court. But like you said, they're still big. Also, they have the highest ranked recruit in program history with Zach Foster. And Dylan Hunter's kind of the floor general of this team that is playing more up-tempo than they've played in the past. So I hesitate to say that they are more athletic than Alabama, but I think that they're more athletic than Clemson teams that we have seen previously.
Alabama fans remember 2 years ago, Ian Sheffling and that team came into Coleman Coliseum, and in the second half, they just wore Alabama out on the inside. Alabama had no answer. They went straight inside, and Alabama couldn't stop them. And then, of course, in the rematch, you saw a little bit different. Jared Stevenson had gotten a little more mature. He was out there hitting three-point shots, and so was Mark Sears. So a different in the matchup, but again, to me, the same issues and concerns are going to happen on Wednesday night. So Alabama's going to need to be careful, at least in my opinion, on that one. Last year, they go 27-7, and they're one of the teams. Then they beat Duke, so they beat Duke last year. So this team is really well coached.
And from what I do know in my years of being a Clemson student, there is always one fluke win against a blue blood for this team. It never fails. If you go back, there's just always one. I've never really understood it. but somehow there is just this visceral ACC loathing towards Duke where they're going to find a way to pull it out. So you never know with these darn Tigers,
Well,
cardiac cats.
let it be against Duke or North Carolina. Just let it not
Yeah,
be Wednesday night against
not the
Alabama.
new blood.
No, let it not be against the new blood. All right. In addition, Alabama has another game. This is going to be Sunday afternoon. So one of those unique Sunday afternoons. Actually, Alabama is also going to play in Huntsville on a Sunday. So and Florida. I think this is going to be the most Sunday games I can remember in a while for Alabama coming up
Just
this
like
season.
church.
Yeah. So, all right. So we got University of Texas San Antonio, UTSA, and there is a strong Alabama connection. So we have Austin Clonch, former assistant, who was an assistant for Oats on the Final Four team. He's the head coach. I think this is his second year there. This is going to kick off the Nate Oats coaching tree tour this year because you're also going to have
this month.
Yes, you're going to have Brian Hodgson coming up, and you're going to have Antoine Petway. And I know Ryan Pinot wanted to schedule him too, but he got there so late at Arkansas State they didn't have time to make it work. So I suspect next year you will see Pinot on the schedule. I don't know if you'll see Charlie Henry or not, but I know that I'm pretty much going to guarantee you're going to see Ryan Pinot on the schedule next year. All right, what can you tell me about UTSA and Austin Clonch in his second year right now?
He kind of seems to be taking the Nate Oats approach with trying to schedule tougher non-conference opponents. And it is a little bit harder for him. He's only in his second year and he's already dealing with a pretty much complete roster overhaul. But, Bama starts a harder stretch of that non-conference slate in December that also holds USC later in the month. So I think that says a lot about the belief that he has in this team. But I think that the player that Alabama is really going to have to look out for is Jameer Simpson. He's a guard, 6'7", possibly 6'8", I believe. And he's averaging almost 19 points per game, lead scorer in 6 of 8 games so far. But this UTSA team is 4-4. So breaking even, but I do think that there's a lot of potential with this team. You know that Nate Oats is definitely not going to say that it's a bad opponent by any means. It'll be a fun game, and I think that it'll be a good time to potentially see somebody that we haven't seen yet make the floor.
Well, Oates joked that he'll definitely want to play all his former assistants anytime because he always thinks that's great because they're going to want to run with him. So he said we should have better players. So I've heard him say that before. He says that half serious, half joking. So I suspect you'll have something similar when UTSA comes. All right, so let's wrap things up with something a little bit different. We always give me predictions on what Alabama does this week versus Clemson and UTSA. Well, I don't think they're going to go 0-2. Are they going to go 1-1 or 2-0?
2-0.
All right.
Yeah, that's my pick.
How worried do we need to be about Clemson? How close is this Clemson game going to be if Alabama gets the victory?
That's a great question. I'm going to go with. I think it's going to be within 10 points. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think that Clemson's going to come forward because Nate Oats has said himself today that they haven't always had the best run. Like, I'm pretty sure he said that it was a losing record against Clemson since he's been here. I think it's going to be close, especially if Clemson knows that it's an opponent that they can beat. And not only that, but this would be a huge statement win for this team, especially going into the last month of the year. Either way, I do feel pretty confident that Alabama is going to beat Clemson. My only concern is who is available for Alabama against the Tigers. That would really be what bridges the gap between a blowout and something a little bit closer for me. UTSA, do you want me to predict the spread on that?
No, we don't have to go. We don't have to go that far. And I don't want to take UTSA lightly, but
right.
I mean, what I would say is, if they want to run, there might be the possibility of records being broken. How about that? I'm not going to say which ones, but there might be the possibility of records being broken because in the last 7 seasons that Coach Oats has been in Alabama, he continues to break records like every season. So it's every year has a new historical chapter or page that's turned. When it comes to Clemson, you're right. I believe Coach has a losing record against them at Alabama. I think he's 1-2. He has the Elite Eight, but he's lost to them twice in the non-conference schedule during the regular season. So I think he definitely knows the potential and the hazards of Clemson, but I agree with you too. I see Alabama going 2-0 this week. That gets them to 7-2. And then they get a week to prepare for the big showdown against Arizona at the BJCC. So that will be very, very interesting. All right, I want to do prediction number 2. All right, so we already talked about the injuries. You've got the information from the press conference. Obviously, Collins is off the table, but let's talk about Latrell, let's talk about Jalil, and let's talk about Keaton. Out of those three, is there any one that you would put higher odds on of a possibility of playing against Clemson?
I guess this would technically be taking the under. I'm going to go with seeing Jaleel before we see Latrell or Keaton.
Or Keaton. Okay.
Yeah.
So that would potentially push them back all the way to UTSA with no guarantee that we would see them there either. If that's the case, then that means they're out for 3 weeks before you get to Arizona.
I would honestly even lean towards not seeing them until Arizona, just for the sake of keeping them healthy against a team where they're really going to need that depth. Why not run the freshmen, let them get some minutes? Maybe let's see some more minutes from Jacob Martin, who ended up being one of the highlights of last week. I'm just saying, Coach, I want to see something. I liked what I saw in the brief minutes.
Okay, let's go. Let's do a funny prediction number 3. Are we going to see Jacob Martin on Sunday?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So all right, there's
okay, look, if he's going to have the pomp and circumstance of Vegas, he needs to feel it in Coleman Coliseum.
Okay. So that is the Emilee Smarr guarantee. We're gonna lock that
Guarantee.
down for yeah, that's the guarantee for Sunday.
Guarantees because they're just verbal, they're not in print. So that works.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. The Emilee Smarr guarantee is we will have a Jacob Martin sighting Sunday against UTSA. I'm very curious for the game against Clemson because there's a lot of people waiting to see the first Jalil Bethea sighting, and it would be very interesting if you could see him because, right now with Trelly not in that backcourt, I mean, you got LeBaron and you got Aiden, and they're shouldering the load right now. So I would like to see a third option come back from a true guard position. I mean, Ari Allen's been doing great too, but, Jalil's a more natural guard. So that would be very interesting.
And Amari it was good to see him get more assists after Oats stressed that he wanted to see him create a little bit more after that Gonzaga loss. So, it's good to know that he can do it. But at the same time, I think that Jaleel would bring a little bit of a different edge considering he came from the ACC playing in Miami his freshman year.
All right, everyone. Well, another great podcast as always. Emilee, I can't thank you enough for your time. This is continues to be both fun and informative, or at least I hope that's what the listeners are taking from this. Give everyone a shout out on how they can keep up with all your great work.
Yeah, so you can always follow me on Twitter at Emilee_Smarr. That is Emilee and Smarr, not smart. So
we disagree. We
that's
say
my
smart.
favorite self roast. Of course, you can always find me on Instagram, Emilee Smarr Reporter, and make sure to always check out the Tuscaloosa News. That is where. So if you check out that staff directory, click my name, you can always find all of my articles, or click my byline on the most recent article that you've read. So that is everywhere that you can find me.
What little power we have, we definitely give the full endorsement. If you want to keep up and know what's going on with Alabama basketball, you need to give Emilee a follow on anything, whether it be Instagram, whether it be X, online at the Tuscaloosa News and Tide Sports. That's a must. And as I always joke with her, she cannot say it, but I can. So roll Tide, and we will be back hopefully next week where we will have a preview for the big showdown in Birmingham against Arizona. All right, Emilee, thanks again.
Thanks. Bye.